together a new financial instrument with the aim to support investments, productive and economic investments in your regions and in your countries. And we will make sure that these financial instruments will deliver on the ground in support of your efforts. And I think the MS for Economic Growth program is actually the right program to assist in making sure that the investments actually flow towards your municipalities. Finally, a last word, if you allow me. As you know, the war waged by Russia has fundamentally changed the geopolitical landscape in the region. And in that context, the EU has granted Ukraine and Moldova the status of a candidate to become members of the European Union. This is, of course, a historical decision. And we will make sure through MES for Economic Growth, but of course through our support in general, that Ukraine and Moldova become full-fledged members of the European Union in the years to come. Of course, this the European Council has also granted Georgia not the candidate status yet, but a clear European perspective, and we will, of course, also work closely with Georgia on its path to become a member of the European Union. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you very much for your attendance, and I would like to now hand over to Leila Sadiku, who is the Innovation Team Leader at UNDP Istanbul Regional Hub. Leila, please, over to you.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning to all. Thank you, Gerald. Thank you, Thibault, as well, and all our city partners and other partners who are joining us this morning to launch the EU Response and Renewal Grant Program, which is designed for cities and communities in Ukraine and Moldova to support the response in these difficult and trying conditions and build forward better. So there's not really much for me to add, Gerald, to what you've already said. I think people around the world have been inspired by the resilience the people in Ukraine have shown and the way and the solidarity that their neighbors in Moldova have also displayed in these moments, as well as we see a number of crises coming in, like the ones that you named, the food crisis and security and energy one. Cities and local authorities and the communities at the city level have been the ones that have been at the forefront of this response, responding to all the needs that have come from citizens, whether that is hosting, providing shelter, providing basic services, but also coming together to think about a different future and different futures and more hopeful ones. So they really continue to respond to the new challenges and to display high levels of resourcefulness and creativity in meeting the needs as they emerge. So this program is designed, as you've heard, to support cities and the communities up to 25 in Moldova and Ukraine to respond to the needs that are coming up and the ones that are already being faced. It's designed to be adaptive. It's designed to be grounded in local reality, to support things that are already going out, so already things that are happening and fast. So we will work together to the best of our ability with you to provide short-term results while also trying to keep a long-term vision. So this is, as you've heard, it's a part of a broader partnership that we have with the EU under MES for Economic Growth. And just to say that EU and UNDP, so this is a part of a broader partnership between EU and UNDP in Moldova and Ukraine, which is up to 150 million. So what's gotten us here is I'd say outstanding trust and cooperation that we have with Team Indigeneer, with Gerald, with Thibault, as well as the EU delegations in Moldova and Ukraine. Our team in Istanbul as well, Tina's leadership, and mostly our teams on the ground in Ukraine and Moldova continue to engage and to respond to everything, to where they've seen, to what they've heard, to the things that you've raised with them. And I think most importantly, to the city network that we have in both countries, which have continued to be super committed in these moments of difficulty. So on that note, I'll be handing over to Thibault, I guess, to lead us to the next stage.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Leila and Gerald, for these opening remarks and for setting the scene. We will now move to the overview of this EU Response and Renewal Grant Program to know more about the two components, the two lots that we will support. And for this, I'm very pleased to give the floor to Tina Stum. She is the Regional Program Manager for Mayors for Economic Growth at UNDP in the UNDP Istanbul Regional Hub. So she's very much the orchestrator of this initiative. Tina, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Thibaut, and good morning, everyone. Let me get the camera right here. The greetings from Istanbul. Before I hand it over to my colleague Mustafa in Ukraine to go over the details over this new program, I wanted just to take the opportunity to recall the identity of the Mayors for Economic Growth, which is really around, as you remember when we started this joint initiative with the EU last year, is really around optimism, and it's around being future ready and bringing in new ways and thinking about local economic development and supporting municipalities as the key shaper of that local development. And similarly, the intention of the M4EG, as we call it, is to demonstrate what a positive transformation at the local level could look like and really work hand in hand and directly with municipal teams and their partners to co-create solution pathways going forward. Now that with the Russian invasion in Ukraine at the end of February this year, that identity and intent remains, but we knew that we had to do a big pivot in order to support the new realities of local authorities in Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova. And so that support so far this year has been around emergency packages for internally displaced persons and refugee shelters, similar to what Gerard already pointed out, but also supporting volunteer schemes in both countries. And now we're launching a support scheme around Ukrainian-friendly officers, also in Moldova. It also included an online course on emergency preparedness for local authorities and short to medium term types of engagements to integrate Ukrainian refugees under employment schemes in Moldova. So just yesterday, our team in Moldova organized a job fair for Ukrainians for employment of refugees in Moldova. So this new program under the M4EG wants to face the difficulty now and the changing reality that we are in with that sense of optimism, and to recall that in crisis lies also opportunity, an opportunity to rethink what we take for granted and how we can change our towns and cities around to be more safe, inclusive, green for us now, but also for future generations. So I want to highlight that we are in this new program. We're interested to hear new ideas from you as members in Ukraine and Moldova on how to address your current immediate needs, but also how we could together reimagine towns and cities for the future. So we very much welcome experiments and things that perhaps you haven't tried before. So we're looking forward to hearing from you around what are the potential initiatives that we could be supporting under this new program. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Mustafa, who is our M4EG lead in Ukraine, and he will start walking us through this new call for local initiatives. And Mustafa will be speaking in Ukrainian. Over to you, Mustafa and Kyiv.
Thank you very much, Tina. Before I switch to Ukrainian, I just wanted to welcome everyone from Kiev. Warm greetings to all participants of today's event. And let me start with an overview of our new grant program, which my colleagues Valentin and Yaira will continue. Now I switch to Ukrainian and like here. So отже, я перемикаюсь зараз і буду далі презентувати.
So I switch to Ukrainian and I will present my presentation in Ukrainian. First of all, I would like to say about general baseline of this grant program. The grant program is called EU Response and Renewal Grant Program, which is based on the methodology used by the M4EG, that's the Agora framework approach, which includes a range of innovative approaches towards municipality development, such as listening, understanding of all those changes that happen. It also envisages a very flexible approach towards implementation of the projects,
к осуществлению проектов, которые включают кадровые имплементарії проєкту Лойкарі і комбіна.
Два основні вікна або два основні лоти.
Key windows, two key or lots. One of them is dedicated to more urgent responses needed for reaction on outcomes of war on municipalities and towns. So the lot number 1 is called response and immediate recovery. Within this lot, our members for our network, it relates both to Ukraine and Moldova, can receive a grant in the amount from 30 to 50,000 euro, and its main peculiarity is this is an just urgent response, and this lot is actually aimed at responding on most acute needs. There is no co-financing financing required. Within the lot number 2, which is called renewal and anticipation for projecting of further development, it's aimed at the most long-term transformations in the cities and towns, in particular its economy, as and economy, culture, and so on. As these changes are the long-term ones, here we have a little bit bigger budget from 70,000 to 100,000 euro, but here we have a requirement for core financing at least of 20% level. Next slide, please.
Next slide. Отже, трошки більш детально хочу
розповісти. A little bit more about each of these lots within the program. The first lot, as I have already said, aims at urgent response and immediate recovery means, and the main aim here or main purpose is to support the immediate needs of vulnerable categories of population, in particular IDPs or refugees in case of Moldova, whose houses, jobs, and businesses were significantly affected by the war. Also, within this lot, such initiatives on immediate recovery of infrastructure and services provision, which are needed exactly now, which are extremely critical for the functioning of local economy and well-being of residents.
І для того, щоб
In order to
Please change the slide. І для того, щоб проілюструвати,
in order to give you more examples of activities that could be supported within the lot number 1, we have some cases for you or some examples for you. This could be projects or programs which aim on positive changes on individual or household level, or those projects and programs which aim to achieve changes on the level of cities and communities at large. In the first case, if we speak about individual or household level, there could be changes related or there could be problems related to employment, return to normal social life, and just addressing difficulties with any adjusting to economic life in cities or host communities. At the same time, on the level of cities or communities, it could be taking into consideration the whole amount of possible funding. This could be small or relatively small projects, but extremely important projects for restoration of city and town infrastructure in order to address some urgent needs of cities, towns, and communities, maybe projects related to water supply, waste, safety structures, so different activities which can be implemented quite quickly and within the funding which is being allocated. Next slide, please.
Трошки про лот.
Also, a little bit more information about lot number 2. Its main purpose to develop, to form our future. So this is about projects which aim to achieve recovery, renewal of cities, towns, municipalities, communities, and projecting their future. Why is it so? Because now, being in the very midst of the crisis, it's very difficult to forecast anything for many communities, cities, and towns. It's very difficult to envisage the future conditions, taking into consideration where we are now. But at the same time, we have this understanding that we would like to achieve better, we would like to have bigger, higher quality cities and towns. No one doubts that we will have blossoming future, but in order to have this blossoming future, we should form it now. We should make steps already now. Within this lot, there will be a possibility to support such activities, such events and initiatives, which actually make a foundation for continuing and future sustainable development, modernization, and implementation of new practices, also using those possibilities that we have, because we know that each crisis brings not only challenges, but also opportunities. And in order to understand these opportunities, to see them and transform them into practical activities and steps, we actually do have this lot. And those initiatives that will be supported within the framework of this lot should be perspective in terms of economic and social development and blossoming.
Please change the slide. І в випадку цього лоту так само. Ми
For
маємо
this lot also, we have two levels, the same as for the previous lot, on which we would like to operate. First of all, that's the level of individual persons and households and level of cities and communities. Again, here we have possibility and to support more systematic and long-term integration for IDPs and refugees, and also to improve their communication and engagement with the host communities in order to achieve better integration. We know that especially in Ukraine, those who were forced to relocate now they consider, a huge percentage of these people consider possibility to stay in their hosting communities for longer term. And so we think that these initiatives could help their integration in the host communities and form such a group, such a coordinated team. For example, it could include some joint efforts on support of business, doing business, exchanging information, form cooperatives, and so on, in order to help people to integrate into economic and social life of the host communities. And also, regarding the city and community level, this slot envisages support of systematic renewal initiatives aimed to create systematic renewal both of infrastructure and institutional base in cities and communities, in particular, creating of new public spaces built on inclusivity and accessibility principles. Also, it aims to facilitate communication, as, for example, due to the reform of decentralization in Ukraine, we have many small cities and towns, and they have already experienced this spirit of community. And also, it could facilitate to create this presence of the city beyond its borders. We're going to support those initiatives that could unite new partners, bring knowledge, and implement new practices, and actually understand and reflect the new experience, because many communities have already faced this crisis circumstances. Many communities, cities, and towns have already developed their new good practices, how to respond to this crisis, and it will help to form a new quality level in terms of management and development, future development of the cities and communities. That's in a nutshell about initiatives within these slots that could be supported. I could see some questions in the chat. If there is time further, we will respond to them within this event. If there is no time, we will definitely send you a written reply. Now, I would like to give a floor to my colleague, Mr. Valentin Kroitoro, to continue this presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, dear colleagues, dear representatives of the local communities, local authorities of the Republic of Moldova. I will make the presentation of the next steps for this call for interest and applications. Now, on the 28th of October, we are officially announcing it, and on the following weeks, we shall carry out supplementary info sessions for all criteria to be able to apply to these two lots of grants, as my Ukrainian colleague has presented. The period for submitting documents will be up to the beginning of December. So that would be early December would be the deadline, and the winners would be announced in January 2023. As my colleagues were saying, this is a will aim at engaging during the implementation period, and it is announced to be in, well, it is expected to be in January till December 2023. So February, December 23, the projects need to be implemented. In July 2023, you will have the possibility to make the a presentation of the implementation path, and then you could also share your achievements with the participants and partners from the Mayors for Economic Growth facility. Next slide, please. As I was saying, next week there will be these separate info sessions with the local public authorities, and you will get separate invites for these sessions. Next slide, please. Right now, I would like to briefly inform you about the eligibility criteria and the scores to be granted in order to benefit from the grant. So first of all, we'll take into account alignments and relevance. So the alignment of the ideas and project proposals to the two lots. So this is a response and renewal program to the refugee crisis, and relevance vis-a-vis these local plans and objectives will be taken into account with the score of 25 out of 100. So 20 points will be granted to the implementation aspects by the local authority. Even if we accept projects in partnership, private or public, the activities need to be implemented in partnership with the local authority and its employees. So you also need to prove that this is a project for the refugee community and the hosting community. 20 more points will be granted for capacity or capability and feasibility. This will be seen by the projects that you have implemented before from foreign funds, other projects which are underway, which you probably have in your local authority, and that might take into account from economic, social, technical, and financial point that will assess the capacity from these perspectives of the local community and local authorities. Another thing would be to prove your innovation in the project proposal. So this initiative, as well as the projects that we're implementing, are there to prove the new approaches to the issues beyond business as usual, things which are already being implemented in the local community, and the extension and absorption in the local context. Also, as I was saying, 10 points will go for projects that are implemented in partnership with the private sector. That is the best case scenario. And 10 points will be granted if the initiative or if your project proposal would have cross-cutting topics, cross-cutting themes such as gender equality, human rights, conflict sensitivity. These would be key components that would be assessed in the project proposal. Also, we have three qualification things in relation to this assistance lot. I need to reiterate that we will take into account only those projects that intend to directly support the refugees. And for the second lot, there should be a funding proof of at least 20% from the local stakeholders, NGOs, local NGOs, international NGOs, or from the existing budget of the local public authority. This is what I wanted to share with you. I'm always there at your disposal for supplementary details, and we'll continue with the info sessions in the weeks to come. Thank you very much. And now, please, I pass the floor to the colleagues.
Thank you very much, Valentin and Mustafa, for the very clear and useful presentations on the new component. We will now hear from Mrs. Yaira Chung. She's responsible for the portfolio of innovation and learning in UNDP Istanbul Regional Hub. Yaira, over to you.
Thanks, Thibault. So good morning, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me fine. So I'll hear today, I'm glad to be part of this conversation and also present the work that we have been doing at IRH and also for Mayor's team of how we are thinking about response and renewal program for the Moldova and Ukraine. So here, the overall thinking framework is, as you can see it here, so this is linking on or building on what has Tina already expressed, and also Mustafa and Valentin has already expressed on that thinking about
розповіли про це, як ви реагуєте взагалі.
And also renewal recovery for the cities. So here we're trying to intervene in different angles, and this is the overall thinking framework. So it's just for your reference, but I will go into details of what do we actually mean by that, and then what are the different activities that we thought would be interesting for us to actually see. So this is, consider this as a inspirational, or consider this as, you know, some of the possibilities that we are looking towards to actually hearing from you. But I'll just go over some of the examples or some of the experiments that we looked into that might fit into this proposal. So if you can go to the next slide. So as Mustafa already explained on the response and immediate recovery, there is already specific angle where we want to cover the immediate needs of individual and household level, and also for the city and community level. So here are the specific or a few ideas that we thought would be also interesting for us to look in, which is the supporting mental health and well-being of the internal displaced people and also refugees and citizens, because from the research, from the interviews that we conducted for Mayor's team, there was a lot of mentioning about supporting of the well-being of the citizens and also for the refugees, and also something about that innovative solutions for youth education and social support. So what I've heard from the colleagues also, or in this team on the ground, that they are looking for different opportunities to engage youth where they are currently missing some of the gaps and they're experiencing difficulties in achieving this. And also one of the key thing that we also look into, because the mayor's program is looking into local economic opportunities and social vibrancy. So there we also try to look into reskilling and upskilling of the employment opportunities. One case that we looked into is Lambada School, where they can study now and then pay later. So these are different models that you can, as a municipality level, and also with talking with CSOs and private sectors, there are different points that we thought would be interesting for us to also explore. At the city and community level, this is beyond from the individual and household, where we're looking into, can we then collectively organize and share, contribute resources, especially the winter is coming and then seasonal changes. So can we look into specifically about energy source, heatings, clothings, and also providing any other additional support for the city and community, and also creation of and the support of public common goods. So sharing the cost, public spaces, if there's any empty spaces that we can actually already utilize, and municipality can provide different functional spaces. That's one thing that we also thought would be interesting for us to look into, and also the informed decision making using technology. So that's also a lot of interest for us to look into different use of technology to actually address some of the challenges that municipality is facing. So these are some of the initial kind of inspiration or ideas that we looked into. If you look into the next slide. So I won't go every detail of this experiment. I would love to actually go walk through or share more about what have been found in the research. So I'll be happy to share that. Our team will be happy to share that. So some of the things that we looked into, there are different cities, how they organize different cooperation. For example, in Turin, they had organized interdepartmental cooperation for the commons. So how to use shared public goods. And also there are many cases where they are able to have youth center or learning spaces where people can actually then come and collaborate together. And also thinking about multifunctional private spaces. So there are many cases where the cities have actually tried to use empty spaces or vacant places to provide opportunities for private sectors or artsmen or artists or even the childcare activities, so that it becomes almost multi-purpose functional activities that is available to actually support the needs of the citizens and also the needs of the city itself. And also the participatory mapping, I just included there because we thought that's also an interesting case where many cases people are just looking for different available resources and available places in the city. So it's also one of the interesting experiments that we might be also able to apply. If you go to the next slide. On the renewal and anticipation, as Mustafa already mentioned, this is actually looking into social integration support for the community building and then engagement. And also we're trying to create a space where people can sense or create that sense of belonging in the newly placed homes. And also in the city level, there was a lot of discussion about how can we then rebuild the brand and identity of the municipality moving forward. And I've heard a lot already today. The colleagues have been mentioning about future ready cities. So using this time, how can we then actually build this collective identity and also bring different cultural activities or green circular business models to think about how the city can actually evolve, and also bring that participation platform for people to have accountability and transparency in building the next future. So this is the renewal anticipation lot that we're looking into. If you go into the next slide, I'll also go briefly on the examples. So here there are many examples also. You can see one of the examples that I thought was very interesting. It actually has been tested out in Denmark and many countries like Finland and Sweden, which is called neighborhood mothers. So there's a lot of newly coming immigrants or newly coming mothers who are coming to the city, and they actually organize community platform where the women are exchanging their skills and also acknowledging unrecognized skills. So bringing that social cohesion using this community outreach, community platform. BZSB is one of the example of the using the communal garden and also the community hub to actually think about green and regenerative economy and also bringing social integration. Another example that I thought was interesting, this actually goes beyond of our proposal, how our proposal can support, but this can be utilized to leverage. One of the example that we looked into is Lutsingo Bridge that has been built, where that the initiation of the idea was actually led by community and the municipality. The municipality actually had an open call to collect an idea how to connect the different neighborhoods and different communities around it. And actually this was the first case where the public infrastructure was crowdfunded and then has been fully pledged by the citizens. So there's a lot of interesting ideas and experiments that we are here to support, and we're also here to think together to see how we can actually iterate those ideas. And as you have seen the process, when the proposal is submitted in January and February, we will have that kind of co-creation or learning space where we would like to also help further solidify or also help to further progress the ideas and so on. So we'll be happy to share more information or go through any other questions or concerns that you might have in the country calls or the info sessions that the colleagues will lead. But this is some of the ideas that we looked into, and then also interested in looking towards or looking forward to hear from your ideas there as well. So I'll stop here and then maybe open up for questions. Thibaut, please.
Thank you so much, Yaria. Very inspiring, and I'm sure the participants found it very useful in the run-up for the application process. This is now the moment for the Q&A session. So we have a bit more than 10 minutes before the end of this event. I just want to reassure the participants that this first gathering will be followed up with national events, country-specific events, where and when we will be able to brief you in more details on the conditions for participating in this new component. So I see many questions in foreign languages, in Ukrainian. So I guess some of them will be answered by Mustafa, and maybe in the country-specific session for Ukraine. But maybe if I can start with the one in English, the one I can see, in what currency is the grant agreement concluded? Usually we conclude those agreements in the local currency. What is the overall budget of the competition? This is 1.8 million euro. And if you have other questions on this, we can follow up in the country-specific call. And how many applications can one participant submit? I think this is this is usually 1 or 2 maximum. But I will let my colleagues Tina and maybe Mustafa also complement if they see anything they can respond immediately to the questions. Tina, Mustafa, over to you.
Feel free to go first, Mustafa, if you like.
Thank you, Thibaut. Дійсно, колеги, надійшло досить багато запитань стосовно умов участі у програмі. Я запевняю вас, ми всі
respond and how to participate in this program. All these questions are we note down, and we will provide you answers on these questions. As it was already mentioned, there will be an information session dedicated specifically for country level, because today is a general meeting, information meeting, and it will follow up with information sessions for on country level, both for Ukraine and also for Moldova. And we will dedicate the sessions to all the conditions and the call for proposal process, and we will answer all the questions. So now, as much as possible within the time of frameworks that we have, I will answer all questions, but don't worry, be sure we will follow it up with deep grounding into all the conditions and processes, and we'll give you all recommendations. So the first question, so that's the question from Andriy Litvinov. Is it possible to have funding to restore buildings and houses damaged due to the hostilities? The answer is that yes, it's possible within these initiatives, but we could also look at the potential volume of funding that could be received and the timing framework. So everything depends on how much feasible this plan is, and depending on the competition at large. Also, we will check whether the proposal corresponds to all other criteria, and in comparison with other proposals, whether it guarantees the effect, the maximum possible effect to achieve. For example, if we speak about other the same conditions to restore houses and households, and in other proposals, these households which be bigger and could possibly allocate higher numbers of refugees or IDPs, then those proposals will have an advantage over this one. Then we have a question from Tetiana Yanuk, whether a priority will be given to the proposals submitted from the territories located closer to the hostilities areas. Valentin has already mentioned all the criteria. Just be sure that all the participants and members of the M4EG program have the same conditions. It means that we will check whether proposals correspond to all the criteria and what are expectations regarding possible outcomes of the proposal, and whether they correspond to the criteria. Also, there is a detailed guidelines for those, the detailed guidance notes for all the bidders, for all the participants. And this guidance note includes all the criteria and details which will be taken into account when we make our decision which proposals receive grants. Taking into consideration the timing, now I can't answer all the questions, but again, just very quickly, I can answer a question regarding proposals for repairing works and proposals regarding building of shelters for IDPs. That yes, the answer is yes, it's possible. Then geographical borders and limits. Could we consider territories where there are no hostilities, or territories where there are hostilities? Again, going back to our criteria. According to our criteria, all cities and communities which are engaged into the M4EG program could participate in this call for proposals. The only thing is that when we choose the proposals that will receive grants, we will also consider the criteria of relevance and actual feasibility of implementation of the proposal. We will also consider risks related to arrangements and implementation of such projects and proposals. So these proposals and projects should have capacity for implementation and should not create any additional risks, security risks for those who will implement them. Thank you so much. I give a floor to Thibault. But again, I would like to reassure you that all your questions are noted down and you will receive your answers during the following up information sessions when we will have more time to discuss all the nuances and details of call process. Thank you. Thibault, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mustafa, for already taking some of these questions. I think it is extremely positive and encouraging to see so many questions. I think it shows the interest and the necessity of this new component. So we will be very happy to follow up during the country-specific sessions, and we will have more time to go into details and to see the modalities. But for now, I think this is the end of this regional, this first discussion on this component. I hope you have found it useful. We will send you in the coming days more information on the timeline as it was explained today, and we will follow up with the country specific discussions. So what is left for me is to thank you once again for connecting this morning. We have more than 140 participants from both countries in the call. So thank you so much again for attending the session and for your attention. Mayors for Economic Growth is extremely important for the European Union and for UNDP. So we are very happy that the initiative is evolving and that we are able to show flexibility to adapt to the uncertainty and complexity of the situation in Ukraine and in Moldova. And we want to deliver tangible benefits to the municipalities. So we will rely on your cooperation in the coming days and weeks. And we will be looking forward to the next discussions on this very important component. So thank you very much again, and I wish you all a good rest of the day, and thank you to UNDP colleagues as well for their participation and support. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.